All right, so if I said best sneaker brand, what would you say? It's gotta be Skechers. If I said superior ice cream topping, what would you pick? If I said Netflix show to binge, I'm running out of shows, I need some help. If I said Taco Bell item, like you could only pick one, which one would you pick? And I say all that, I bring all those topics up to show that with any topic, no matter how important or unimportant, different people are gonna have a bunch of different ideas about it. And the same is true about sex. Whoa, time out. That was kind of out of nowhere, right? But for the past couple weeks, we've been talking about sex and how there's actually probably more to the story than we originally thought. I mean, you hear and see a ton of different things about sex from people like friends, celebrities, parents, pastors, and you also hear about sex in a bunch of different places like movies, TV shows, health class, church, anime, pornography, TikTok, Snapchat. Come on, I know. And obviously, with that many different opinions and that many different voices, it can be hard to figure out what's good, what's not, and what you should do. Here's the thing though, when it comes to conversations about sex, one of the problems is that all of those opinions, they all come with expectations. This is what I mean. First, there's the expectation to do more, say more, and be more. And that can complicate the idea of sex. I mean, think about it. There's pressure to feel more casual about hookups. There's pressure to send pictures or texts. There's pressure to send those same pictures to other friends. There's pressure to experiment, pressure to do whatever your partner wants, pressure to be a part of and keep up with conversations about sex. There's pressure to just have more sex. And there's pressure to literally know everything there ever is to know about sex, whether or not you're sexually active. And on top of that, there are other voices that are talking about boundaries and respecting other people's bodies, and all of those things are super important. But to go along with all of that, if you've been around church or around Christians, then there's even more voices with more opinions and more expectations. And there can actually feel like there's added pressure to do less. Like there's added pressure to not go too far. There's pressure to not even think too far. There's pressure to honor God by honoring other people's bodies. There's pressure to not have sex until marriage. Now, just a sec, I'm not saying anything that I just listed is bad or wrong. I'm just saying that with any topic, there are gonna be different voices with different opinions that have different expectations for you and your life, and that can make it feel like you just can't win. Because guys, regardless of what you choose, whether you choose to do more or less sexually, somebody is gonna think what you chose is weird. Somebody is gonna think that it's wrong. There may even be people who think that somebody else is convincing you to do something bad sexually, and it just makes me think, how on earth do you make decisions for your life and your life story when it seems like everybody else has a different opinion of what you should do? That's a good question. And it's one that people have been asking for a very, very long time. But before we get into it, let me give you a quick history lesson. So the Bible is a collection of documents that are split into two parts. So we've got the Old Testament and we've got the New Testament. And these documents, some record history, others are poetry, some are specific letters written to different people. And the documents listed in the New Testament record what happened after Jesus came and walked on this earth. And the first 4 documents in the New Testament record what Jesus' life was like while he was here on earth by people who knew him or who interviewed those who knew him. And we call these first 4 documents the Gospels. Now, one of the authors of the Gospels was named John, and he was one of Jesus's 12 disciples, which is so cool because that means that John actually got to do life together with Jesus for years. Like, these guys hung out together for a long time. And it's one of the reasons why people believe what's in the Gospels is true. Because John wasn't just some fan fiction author. No, John was an eyewitness writing what he saw. And in chapter 10, John records something that Jesus said that's so amazing, I think it might have the potential to change how you and I see every decision that we make. So John writes that Jesus is talking to a group of Pharisees, which were not his biggest fans. Basically, they were some haters. And as Jesus speaks, he uses illustrations of everyday things like sheep and farming to describe why he's there and what he's about. Now, I understand that sheep and farming aren't necessarily everyday things for you and me, but in ancient times, it was very common for people to pass sheep or shepherds on a daily basis. So, Jesus is telling these stories and he's using illustrations about sheep and robbers and gates, and it's all kind of confusing and hard to understand until Jesus spells it out for them. And he says this: "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." Now, if that was a little confusing, don't worry, I get it. You aren't the only one. And actually, John writes earlier in the chapter that the religious leaders listening to Jesus at that time, they were confused too. But did you hear that last word that Jesus used? He said full. Now, in its original language, full is used to describe something that's superior. It's better than expected. It's beyond. It's over the top. So pretty much what they're saying is John said that Jesus wants us to have life, but not just any life. He wants us to have more life, better life. I mean, it's what Jesus wants for us in everything. I mean, in life, in relationships, and even with sex. Jesus wants us to experience life, which isn't it kind of crazy how we usually think that's the opposite of what Jesus wants? Like, isn't it tempting to think that God wants us to have life, but minus the good stuff? Like life, but the boring kind. Life, but without anything exciting or enjoyable. And Jesus is telling this crowd of followers and us that couldn't be farther from the truth. He's pretty much saying, hey, yo, I'm not a thief. I didn't come to steal, kill, or destroy your life. No, that ain't me. I came to make your life better and more full than you could have ever imagined. And this word that Jesus uses, thief, can also be used to describe as a trickster. So think about a con artist, someone who says that they have your best interest in mind, but there's actually a different motive behind it. Basically, what Jesus is saying is that there are people who are gonna say that they are for you, but they aren't. And you guys are in high school. I know you get that. I don't have to spell it out for you. But when it comes to Jesus, he is for you. He wants you to experience the full and amazing life that he actually wants for you. And honestly, that's why I think when it comes to the decisions we make with our relationships or even the decisions we make in our personal life, there is no better decision than you can make than to listen to Jesus and follow him. Because guys, everybody is gonna have an idea, an opinion, or an expectation of what you should do or what you could do. But Jesus, that guy knows you. And he doesn't just care about one moment or one decision or even one relationship. He cares about making your whole life better than you could have ever imagined. And out of all the voices that you hear, his is the one that will lead you towards that life because Jesus wants more for your story. Here's the thing though, that doesn't just happen. Like we can't just be like, oh, come out. That's an option? Oh, shoot. Okay, Jesus, I'm gonna need you to drop that life off for me around, we'll say 25. Yeah, when I'm 25, drop it off on the front porch. I'll get to it then. Appreciate it, bro. He doesn't just want more for your story later in life. He wants more for your story right now. And that means that right now, we need to follow him. We need to listen to him. And guys, we gotta trust Jesus right now, no matter what everyone else says. So even though we may start to feel pressure from culture or friends about feeling a certain way about sex or thinking a certain way or behaving a certain way when it comes to sex, we don't have to wonder who has our best interest in mind or who's actually always gonna be for us. Jesus is inviting us to experience life, and that includes sex. Why? Because he wants more for your story. So, how do we get there? When there are so many voices coming from every direction and it feels like everybody has a different opinion on what you should do, you can listen and believe Jesus. When you aren't sure who to trust, you can trust Jesus because he has your best interests at heart and he wants more for your story. And to start living that full life that Jesus wants for us, it requires us to start paying attention to what we're hearing and believing, including messages about sex. Because we're gonna hear different messages from different people from all over, but that doesn't mean that those people are for you. So pay attention to what you're hearing. Pay attention to what you think, feel, and say when it comes to sex. Pay attention to what you say around different people and why. Be aware of who may be pressuring you and why you feel pressured. Be aware of other people that you may be pressuring and what makes you want to pressure them. And guys, y'all, pay attention to what Jesus is saying to you. A few verses after Jesus talks about this full life that he wants for us, he refers to himself as the good shepherd. And then he says this, "My sheep listen to my voice. I know them and they follow me." Now, remember, sheep and shepherds were common back in those times. They're not really common for us now, but you get the point. It's a metaphor. Basically, what he's saying is that the people who belong to Jesus, they listen to his voice. They follow him because he knows them better than anyone else, and he can be trusted. They don't follow him because they're afraid of him. Let me say that again. They don't follow him because they're afraid of him. They follow him because being close to him is the safest place that they can be. And the same is true for you. Ultimately, the best decision that you can make for you is to listen to his voice and follow his lead. I mean, that's true in every part of life, but that also includes sex. Maybe for you, that means starting by reading your Bible a little bit more by yourself. Or maybe you need to start talking to God by yourself a little bit more. Maybe when all voices are coming from all different directions of what you should do, you should listen to Jesus's voice because he wants more for your story. He wants more than some internet site, more than the people you date, more than your friends, and maybe even more than you do. Listen, I realize that figuring out what following Jesus looks like can be tough, like super, super tough. And that's why we have small groups and small group leaders. We want you to know that there's a place you can go to talk about what's going on in your life and your situations. We want you to know that when you aren't sure what following Jesus looks like in this area or in any other, you have a group of people that you can go to who will help you figure it out. Hey, thing is, sex is complicated. And like we've been talking about the past couple weeks, when it comes to sex, part of what makes it so complicated is that we often only hear part of the story. Like, we only hear one side. We only hear certain conversations, and obviously there's way more to the story. That's why when there are voices all around you saying different things about what you should or shouldn't do, I want you to know that you can listen to Jesus's voice and trust his above all of them because Jesus wants more for your story.